A warning for our listeners. This episode talks about police brutality and murder. Please listen cautiously. On May 25th, 2020, the world watched as 46-year-old George Floyd was murdered by a white police officer kneeling on his neck for more than 9 minutes. Like many, I saw the video on social media. I can still remember that sick feeling in the pit of my stomach as I listened to a grown man cry for his mother, and the anger I felt when I heard him repeatedly say, "I can't breathe." I'm Cheyenne Daniels, race and politics reporter for The Hill, and this is The Switch Up. 4 years ago, Floyd's last words became a rallying cry for millions around the world. His murder was, for many, the last straw. Around the globe, people poured into the streets to demand police reform and an end to the police violence that disproportionately affects Black Americans. Just days before the nation recognized the 4-year anniversary of Floyd's murder, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee reintroduced the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, a bill that would pass sweeping federal police reform by ending qualified immunity and banning no-knock warrants and chokeholds. Representative Cori Bush, meanwhile, reintroduced the Helping Families Heal Act, a bill that would provide mental health services for those affected by police violence. As the nation reflects on 4 years since Floyd's death, I sat down with members of his family, his brother, Philonis, and his sister-in-law, Kita. We talked about what this anniversary means to them and how they think this legislation can help our nation. Take a listen. "4 years ago, the nation watched as George Floyd was murdered by a white Minneapolis police officer. As we remember George Floyd's life, I'm here today with his family, his sister-in-law, Kita Floyd, and his brother, Philonis Floyd. Thank you both for joining me today.
Yes,
Thank you for having us.
We are at this 4-year anniversary. I want to start just by, how are you right now? What are you thinking about? What are you reflecting on in this moment?
We're okay. Philonis is going to actually speak.
No, I'm thinking about my brother. You know what I mean? It's something that it's going to always be traumatizing to me. The things about that I think about all the time, a lot of people, you know, they still get that opportunity to have their son, their brother, anybody that's near them. But me, you know, I'm never going to get that. I'm never going to get that affection, somebody to play basketball, somebody to talk to when I'm fishing or anything like that. So it's going to always be devastating to me.
I'm still filled with emotions. You know, I sit back and I think about when George first happened. First and foremost, I admire Philonis' growth. He's never been able to mourn the death of his brother because we were thrust into, you know, doing interviews from the next day on up into to date. You know, so just getting acclimated to our new lives alone has been, you know, a bunch. We've hit some very rough times throughout this process, throughout the past 4 years. You know, families go through all sorts of different, all sorts of different emotions when something like this happens. It's either going to bring a family closer or it's going to actually devastate them and draw them apart. And so we've experienced a little bit of all of those things because the family is so large, right? And so we've had to learn how to maneuver throughout that process because that's personal. You don't want to, you know, go back and forth with your family and just have a lot of confusion and chaos there, as well as showing a united front and having those, you know, tough times and standing in solidarity when we're going out into the you know, various communities and when we're facing the public. We want the public to know that despite what we have going on personally, we are absolutely connected, you know, in this fight for justice. And that's just period, you know, and that's, The family is large, so the family, you have family that lives in different cities and states, and so they're doing the work in their respective states as well. And so that's what makes the family of George Floyd so unique.
Yeah. Your family was thrust into this, and I don't think anybody ever thinks that someday they're going to be in the position that you're in, and you have become, your family, George, has become this symbol, this icon, this, for many, inspiration, this call for change. Yeah. And part of that change was the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which we know former Representative Karen Bass, who's now mayor of LA, she first introduced it. Right. Yeah. It was just reintroduced this week. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. Talk to me a little bit about what went through your mind when you first heard that this legislation was at 2021 when it was first introduced, and that they were naming it after your brother, but then it didn't pass. Like it died in the Senate, and now here we are again. Talk me through kind of what it's like being in the legislative process.
To me, this is mind-boggling. You know, it's like a roller coaster ride, up and downs. The fact that we were introduced to this fraternity for my brother being stolen from us, but the fact that people still wanted to put a bill out for George. And there's not a lot of things that I can say to speak about the pain that not just my brother, because my blood is on this bill. Bottom line, and so many other people, their blood is on this bill. From Ahmaud Arbery, from Trayvon Martin, you can just keep naming people, Eric Garner. But just knowing that some people, they feel that this bill needs to be passed because of qualified immunity, no chokeholds, Dash, talking about the database. You know, it's a lot, you know, because Breonna Taylor, you know, I'm thinking about all of these people. And it's continuing to happen right now, over and over again. But knowing that we have the opportunity to get this bill passed, who's gonna get in there and use their right mind frame and say, hey, let's pass this bill. Let's think about what's going on in America right now.
I feel like it's a lot of potholes that we have to overcome, and we run into and we face. And I say that because when this bill was initially introduced in 2020 and then 2021, because it's passed the House twice, we had no knowledge of what it all entails. So we went back and we had to do research, and research what I mean about us not understanding. The process was, I felt like in that moment we showed up for not just to support the bill because we knew it, but we showed up more so for other families that has experienced this prior to. Yeah. We did not know the impact of the bill in that moment. So now that we've realized everything that it entails, it just blows me away that it has to sit on someone's desk or in someone's mind before they interact and take action and say, no, this is a need. We see the numbers, we see all of the money that we're losing. We see how it's affecting communities. And so we need to implement this bill and put something in place structurally so that these families are not having to lose their loved ones and not be able to sustain as well. Because some of these people that they were losing was the people that took care of they were the providers, they took care of their families. And so they don't realize the impact that we have to face thereafter, the greed. They don't understand our aftermath. Yeah. And so that's the part that's so offensive to me. And it blows my mind to know that we're having this conversation. It's 4 years later and we're still having a conversation about passing a bill that should have been passed 20-something years ago. It should have been seen the need, and it's not going to take anything other than it hitting their front door before they realize that, oh, now there's a need. We need to do something about it. Just like marijuana. Now there's a need. We need to do something about it because, our children are receiving more charges now and it's affecting our daily lives. And so for that reason, we need to implement these things. So it's the same thing. I just feel like it's the same thing. I remain optimistic about this time being far different from the others because Philonis and I weren't able to go out and vocally express these are the things that the bill entails. This is what most important to us. However, moving forward, we didn't just reintroduce that bill yesterday. Yeah. we are committed to going out and educating our communities now on the bill, why it's important, starting podcasts so that we can speak to various audiences so we can get their feedback, because, everybody may not agree with the bill, and that's okay, but tell me why. Help me to understand your why, and I'll help you to understand mine. Not agree. Everybody doesn't have to agree, but at some time we need to have these difficult conversations so we can understand where each other is coming from and what births out of that.
Philonis, you said something yesterday at the introduction, or reintroduction, I should say, of the bill about how what we're seeing today from Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Roger Fortson, who we know was just killed. This has been going on for 400 years, you said. And you said if we can make bills and laws to protect the bald eagle, we can make laws and bills to protect people of color. Talk to me a little bit about, we know this is a racial justice issue.
Absolutely.
But does that make it harder then for folks to see the need for this legislation?
It's 400 years of oppression. That's the greatest crime in history. The crime that we built everything. The black people built this country. You look at Washington, D.C. and all that, they built that, and they did all that without hydraulic construction machines and all that stuff like that. They did that. So if you got people like that who put their lives on the line every day to do whatever they could just to survive, what about the people right now that gets the chance to be free and have the freedom that we got? And some of these people in Galveston, when we had the emancipation and all that, they didn't even know they were free.
That's right.
People had to come there and let them know that they were free. So I'm looking at all the laws that you passed for everybody else. The Asians had their laws passed, but what about us, people of color?
For 400 years.
Yeah.
What about us? We've been doing this thing for 400 years. Asian had one incident, and I hate to keep bringing it up because I don't want them thinking that we're
we're not racist or anything like that.
But the record shows you have the data to support this. Within 30 to 60 days, you had a law implemented and was in place on your behalf. We've been fighting for just something for 400 years. And you say that this is not about race, or you have the nerve to ask the question, is America racist? Absolutely. We have a lot of things that just does not fit the criteria for African Americans as it does for every other race.
And hate moves faster than lightning in the storm.
Yeah.
And it's moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and because I think about the support that we have seen from the bill, right? We know it goes all the way up to the Oval Office. We know Vice President Kamala Harris has called for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Most recently, at the funeral of Tyre Nichols, we heard her get up at that podium and say, we need to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We know President Biden has said to Congress, you get me comprehensive police reform, you get that bill on my desk, I will sign it. What does that mean, though, to know that the White House is on board with saying, yes, we need this bill passed?
I in reference to this bill, I support the Biden and Harris administration for the bill alone. Not to mention all the other work that they do that we have, blatantly seen, we appreciate. But the fact that we have support from our leader, it means the world to us, because sometimes if you take things from the head, it's the pandemic itself. Everybody else will understand and jump on board. And so to know that Biden and Kamala stands with us, they understand the importance of it, and they are pushing it just as much as we are, that's the type of administration that I would love to have as my president and my first lady. It just is. I don't want a president that's pretty, derogatory, demeaning, and by all means very offensive. Every chance they get, they're throwing out accusations and insults. I don't want a president like that. I want someone that's going to focus on, I want you to be the total package. I don't want my president to wake up one morning and feel like those people that have attacked the White House and come in are doing their job. They're making America great again. I just wish that someone could explain what does make America great again. I wish Trump could explain that to me. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I would love for him to help me to understand what does that mean, because as an African American woman, my question is, when was it ever great?
Yeah.
We're still talking about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It's been, 4 years for
4
us that we've
years.
been trying to get this bill passed. So when was it ever great? What are we talking about there?
Yeah.
We saw this week, I'm not sure if you're aware, Representative Cori Bush reintroduced legislation as well, the Helping Families Heal Act, to help families and communities and those who have been affected by police violence. Now I know as a reporter, as a Black American, what it's like watching videos of people who look like me, people who look like my brothers being killed.
That's right.
And it does something to me. I cannot imagine how that would feel to know that that is somebody, whether it's my family member or my neighbor or my coworker, and I'm watching that. What does it mean to know that somebody is taking the time to recognize there's a mental health crisis that goes along with seeing these videos, with being connected to police violence because it's never something we've asked for? What does that mean to know that somebody in Congress is recognizing that that is part of the conversation?
Again, it blows me away. It means everything because Philonis and I go into these underserved and not served communities. We go into communities, period.
Yeah.
And so every time we're having these conversations with the village, you know, the entire village, mom, dad, and their kids, at some point someone is having a mental breakdown. They can't cope. You know, and so as a coping mechanism, you may find some people, they may read, they may travel, they may shop, but some just don't know what their outlet is. They don't know what helps them get to the next level, you know, to be able to be as great as they can be from day to day. And then so as a result, they find drugs and alcohol and everything that brings them down instead of helping them to, you know, soar and be as great as they can be. And so as a result, we lose them to society, to our environment, to the system. And it absolutely destroys families. If mom is absent and dad is absent because they're on alcohol and drugs, then the kids are left living, you know, raising themselves. They have no guidance, they have no structure, they have no direction. And as a result, they begin to look for this love outside the home. Where do they find it at? In gangs, you know? They find it in crime. And as a result, it devastates our communities. And so I feel like at the Philonis and Key Institute for Social Change, we have begun to implement, we have our mental health program. And so one of the things that we have done is we're having conversations with institutions that are already in existence that has mental health awareness programs. And so one of the models that we've adopted is absolutely phenomenal, and it gives the patient total care. So to know that our leaders are hearing us and actually putting things into action is absolutely amazing. They're not just around the table having these conversations. They are actually taking away actionable items and putting them to work. And that's the type of leadership that I support.
Respect is like air, you need it to survive. And she said everything on point. You know, it's nothing else that I could say. You know what I mean? Give her a standing ovation because, hey, so many people's lives are on the line. A lot of these people having problems throughout. Not every nationality. It's not just one. All of these people have problems. But nobody's pointing the finger at everything. And Cori Bush, and she's opening up, speaking about it. People should have been speaking about this a long time ago.
I remember when I was younger too, police officers used to go into the community. They used to hold community events. So they knew the neighborhood. They knew that Sister Sally was a single mother, you know, and so they wouldn't, you know, necessarily go into the home, but they would look out for little Johnny. Oh, you know, your mom don't want you doing that, man, go home.
Take a village.
You know, they knew it takes a village. And so I think there's a complete disconnect. So to know that our leadership is really sitting at that table and taking away actionable items and putting it to work is phenomenal.
I know we focus a lot on the tragedy of that day, and I want to take a moment to ask if there's a light moment that you remember from before May 25th, 2020 with your brother-in-law, if there's something that helps bring joy when in those moments.
We can say it's a wedding.
The wedding conversations. So George, he had just come home. And when he came home, he was adamant about getting his mother and the nieces that she take care of, which is her grandbabies, ready for our wedding. And George made sure they had their dresses and all that good stuff. He told us, do not start that wedding without him. And all of a sudden he came pulling in. We waited an hour for George to get everybody dressed.
No.
And he made it, he made it to the wedding, and we were married and things were great. And then more recently, because we got married in 2014, and so more recent memories that I have is Philona's driving trucks. When he first started driving trucks, George would always call all the way up until his demise and check in on him. If he had a long haul, he would always have conversations with him to help keep him up. And so that piqued his interest to where he said, I want to become a trucker. I'm going to start driving trucks.
You inspired him. He said, that's what I want to do too.
Oh
my goodness.
And so those are my memories of George, and I would always say, thanks for having conversations with him and being available to keep him alert and while he's on those long hauls, those long drives to and from.
Yeah, we talked a lot. I had my father was on the phone. Some of my friends were on the phone. Some of them had never met him before, but some of them, they knew who he was. They met him before, and they was just like astonishing, like the way they were just listening and they were speaking to him and stuff, because they still like, that's just your brother, and they was having a conversation because we all drive trucks and we all laughing and talking.
Joke.
Because my father was on the phone saying the same thing, but when my brother was murdered, they was like, your brother was stolen from us too. They said he wasn't my brother, but he is my brother. Because the same pain that you have, I have that same pain. And they said, we're willing to stand with you throughout everything that you're going through. And that let me know that God put the right people around me, and it helps me elevate because I have my wife with me, that's my rib, and I can talk to her about anything, even throughout the darkest times in our life. We can speak about anything that's going on across this world.
I love that, and I do want to give a shout out. We are celebrating a 10-year anniversary, 10-year marriage anniversary at the time of this recording, and it is absolutely beautiful. I love it. My last question for you, because I so appreciate both of you today. How are you going to remember George Floyd?
No, I just, I always remember him as my brother, what I mean? That's somebody who stood for a lot, because my brother cut people's hair, he helped people with money. He did a lot of different things to help a lot of people. That's the same kind of things that I do right now, I help a lot of people. But the fact that my brother, he was one of those people that can go down the street and see a homeless man, and he would bend down and help him tie his shoe, talk to him, go in there and get him food. I seen all of those things. The things that everybody else see, I don't see. I see somebody who was murdered, somebody's life that was taken from him, somebody who would never see his daughter again, somebody who would never see his brothers or sisters, nobody. He was close to us, and the fact that his life was stolen from us and the people that we are trying to get to pass this bill, I feel that they're living in a political fantasy. It's like every time we see the light at the end of the tunnel, they just want to turn it off. I don't want to leave this world the same way that I found it. This is a world of a lot of racist people, people that just don't care about themselves, and they don't even care about other people. They're stuck and they need mental help. They need it right now. And until this bill get passed, my brother's name is all on this bill, and so many others, and what you mentioned with Roger Forson and Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin. I can just keep naming people. Bodies are dropping every day like flies. We don't get one day to live in life. God didn't create us like that. He created us to live for over 100 years. People got to be able to take care of themselves. People got to be able to look out for other people. We're stronger in numbers. It takes a village to raise anybody. Because people, just because of them being 30 and 40, don't mean that they don't need help. They need help.
Philonis, Keita Floyd, thank you both so much for being here. Our thoughts are with you and your family. Our prayers are with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Cheyenne Daniels, race and politics reporter for The Hill. And from all of us at The Hill, thanks for listening to this episode of The Switch Up. We'll have more episodes out soon, so be sure to follow The Hill on all social media at THEHILL. The Switch Up was created